Hi there, my name is Steve Bullock, Guitar Moog. I'm very excited today because I'm going to do one of my absolute favourite things that I could possibly do, which is to build a completely new pedal board from scratch. Sometimes I think I like building pedal boards and messing around with them more than I like playing through them, which is a bit worrying. But I really do love doing this, and there's a great gang of people on Twitter who all follow each other and all chat about guitars, and a few people have said that they would like to see a walkthrough of from start to finish of putting a board together. So that's what I'm going to do. So the impetus behind this is that I play in in two bands, a covers band called Zinner, who are a fantastic loud rock barroom party rock and indie covers band, who are my greatest friends and the absolute best. And I also play in another band called the Vanity Drones, which play a very different kind of music. They play what we call ambient indie pop, and it's all original stuff. And I'm using lots of ambient sounds, string-like, horn-like, synthy type sounds. Now in Zinner, I used to have a huge pedal board because we really try and get close to the sounds on the record or the bands used live to play the stuff that we were playing, which led to some really absurd things. Like I had I'll put a picture of it up, and you'll see that I had a completely separate loop for organ sounds, which I mainly only used for like one intro, and for a bit of Girl Like You by Edwyn Collins, where you have to make kind of bell noises. I'd use that for that. That was an entirely separate signal path from start to finish, going right through, and then it was combined at the end. Had things on there like a mini tremolo pedal. I don't have it lying around. I think it's up there. Oh yes, it's now on my board. On my mini grab and go board, I had a mini tremolo pedal that was literally just for the bit before the solo in Just by Radiohead, where there's a sort of helicopter sound. I literally only turned it on for one bar. But we were really chasing that, and it was really fun, and I really enjoyed chasing all of the different sounds. But over time, I found that the ambient stuff is a bigger outlet for the sort of sound making side of things for me. And actually in a rock covers band, what I really want to do is I want to play guitar and not be constantly thinking about pedals and going for lots of pedal combinations. So there are two ways I could go. Either I could, I should say that the ambient board that I'm using, this one, has now, I use that big Pedaltrain Pro for the ambient board now. And there's two ways you can go. Either you buy another huge pedal board, and then you put more money into switches and so on, so that you can pre-program combinations of effects for each song. And that's definitely one way to go. But actually, I really wanted to just simplify things as much as possible, have less to carry and take up less space on stage, have a little bit less to go wrong, have things closer to 1 foot. I actually find it quite difficult when I'm standing up to change pedals with my left foot. Like when playing football, my left foot is for standing on, not for doing anything with. So a big wide pedal board, you're having to kind of shuffle along to hit different pedals. I really like everything I need to be just under my right foot as well. So I decided to go and simplify it a bit. And actually, one of the ways I'm going to simplify it is with a bit of programmability, because mainly due to the videos here on YouTube of by the brilliant channel Pedal Platform, who's been doing really in-depth reviews of this. I decided to buy one of these TC Electronics Plethora X5. Now I use TC Electronics delays and reverbs. I'm a big fan of them. I use them on my ambient board, and I use them on my live rock and indie board, the Zinner board as well. I also absolutely love this pedal, the G60 by TC Electronics. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's my favourite chorus pedal, having tried tons and tons of boutique and standard and what have you. This is the one I've not really gone on with chorus, not really thought it was the effect for me. This is the one that I've really ended up enjoying using. So I won't go into what this is, but it's basically 5 TC Electronics standard size pedals in one, in a chain, and you can program any tone print pedal from their range into any slot. So this basically takes care, the plan is that this basically takes care of all of the modulation and delay and reverb stuff that I need. And that can replace quite a lot of pedals. You see on the other pedal board there were, that I put up earlier, there were lots of stuff for that. It also does sort of interesting things like octaving. It's got a sub and up in it, so you can do octaves below, octaves above. And really interestingly, it also has pitch bending function, pitch bender, which you can control with expression pedal, and which I'm hoping is going to be able to replace the Whammy on my board. I love the Whammy, but it needs its own power supply. Never seem to get it to work reliably with other power supplies, which is a pain because then you need to put a power strip under your board, or you need to have 2 power cables trailing from it, which is a pain to find on stage when you're setting up and tearing down. It's just unsimple. It also takes up a huge amount of pedal board real estate, which is quite irritating because it's not a pedal I use a lot. I use it for a few covers. I really like having it there. I really like just being able to step on it, but in truth, I don't actually use it very much. But I'd be sad to lose it. But if this can do a decent job, I don't know if it can yet, but we're going to set it up to try that later, and hopefully this replaces the Whammy. So that's octaving pedals that I was using before that it replaces. It replaces the Whammy. It replaces pretty much all the modulation, although we'll come back to that. It replaces the delay and it replaces the reverb. And as you can see, it's pretty small. It's not really that big at all. It's about what? With cables on the side, it's equivalent to about 3 standard pedals, 3 and a bit. Once you have the extra bits for the cables, so it's not taking up a lot of room. It's nice and low profile. I've tested it and it runs on my power supply. It says it needs 600 milliamps at 9 volts. The power supply I'm using has 500, or is rated for 500, and it works perfectly happily on that. I haven't had anything dropping out or anything. So that's the idea here, is that we're going to simplify. So first things first, we have the board, which is Pedaltrain Novo 24. So this is considerably smaller than either the Pedaltrain Pro that I was using and that I'm now using for ambient gigs, where we have a lot more space and I'm sitting down to play, and it's not such a big deal to haul all these huge things and find space for them on little stages. And as a 5-piece band, we don't have a lot of space. It's also thinner than the T-Rex tone trunk, the old T-Rex tone trunk, which I was using, which I've had for about, I don't know, what, 12 or 13 years, and it's been fine, but it's a bit heavier. And the big thing about it is that it's 4 rail, whereas this is 5 rails. So we've got a bit more depth going on here. It's a Novo, so the gaps are smaller here than they are on the Classic series, and that makes it easier with mini pedals and so on. So this is the pedal board we're using. I have a brand new one. The last time I bought a brand new pedal board was the PT Pro. It was quite a long time ago, and it's quite exciting to have one. Right. So the very first thing to do, hopefully I've got this lined up and you can see on the other cam, the very first thing to do is to check the layout of the pedals that we're going to use. Now I do this before I put any Velcro on or anything, so that we have a clear plan. I do this and then I take a photograph of it. I've already been planning it using the Pedaltrain app, Pedalboard Planner, which is a really good app, but it doesn't quite have everything. You also have to sort of guess how much room you need to leave for the plugs and so on the Pedalboard Planner. So you never 100% sure that you've got it right. It's a really useful tool. You can get, I think it's on iOS and on Android. It's a really, really useful tool, but it doesn't have everything, and so on. For example, I use this thing on my wah called Wah-Pad, which is from G-Lab. And what this is a pressure pad. You hook your wah up to it, you plug in and out, not of the wah but of this here, and you fix the wah on and put a little washer. Can you see that? Yeah, you put a little washer on the switch so it stays on, and you don't have to do the toe. You don't have to do the toe press. You just put your foot on the wah and move it. Now I don't use cocked wah sounds. I just use the wah for normal opening and closing wah. And I find this really, really handy because it means you can just step on it for half a bar, or step on it for a couple of notes, and you don't have to be too conscious about it. You can just step on it whenever you need it, and it's there. And I really, I really like this. So, but you know, Pedalboard Planner doesn't have that on it, so it's really useful, but it has its limitations as well. You don't really know until you actually put them all on the board. So that's what we're going to do. So I'll do that now. We're going to have the Plethora right at the back because we have the out here as well. So that's where the out from the pedal board is going to come from. I don't know if I'm completely comfortable with having outs coming directly from the Plethora. It might be a bit of wear on the plugs. It might be a bit of wear on the plugs, so it's quite a, you know, it's not a cheap unit. So I might put a little junction box on the outside of the pedal board here, so that you're plugging into something that costs what, 10 or 12 euros to make, and I bought for 20 euros. So right, we need the wire here right under my right foot. We're going to have the expression now. I'm going to use an expression pedal because I'm going to try and use the whammy function on the Plethora. It has mash foot switches, which are amazing things. They're pressure sensitive expression pedals, and when you press these down hard, it changes parameters, and it's an amazing thing. I really love it. I have it on the Hall of Fame 2 and the Flashback 2, and I use them all the time on my other board. But in this case, because we're going to use the whammy, I want it to feel a bit like a whammy, so I'm going to use this Dunlop Volume X pedal as an expression pedal. So I'll go there. This will go right here. So I'm putting that on the outside because I'm not going to use that a lot. So try to put stuff on the periphery that you're not going to use a lot, rather than filling up ergonomically the closest stuff to your feet with it. I use this Boss wireless system, which I really like. Just have a little bug, pairs automatically. Played 30 or 40 gigs with this so far, and maybe not quite that many, maybe 20 or 30. I really like it. It has cable tone, which is a high-end, basically just a high-end roll-off that makes it sound more like a cable, which I use. Very happy with that. Why I got the Boss one, partly because the bug's very little and the form factor's good, but it has something that most other wireless systems don't have, which is, can you see here, input. So if anything goes wrong with the wireless, it runs out of batteries or whatever, you plug a guitar cable into it and it acts as an entry to your board, bypasses wireless stuff automatically when you plug the cable in. So you have a fail-safe mechanism there. With other wirelesses that don't have an input, you're going to have to pull the plug out of the first pedal in the chain after it, try and get your jack into it. It might not be in a particularly useful place on the board for that. So when I'd never used wirelesses before, always just used cables. When I saw this, and one of the reasons was that, just worrying about the reliability and what happens if they go down, what a pain in the arse it is, something else to worry about. But yeah, this has the input. Genius, obviously very cheap for them to implement, and it got me to buy it when I wouldn't have bought wireless either. So this is going to go up here because that input needs to be accessible. Now with any luck, I still have room for the plug here. Yes, we do just have room there. I think that's going to be all right. Right, now, it's very tempting when you're putting Pedalboard together to get your signal chain worked out, which I have, and to then just put your pedals in the order of the signal chain. That's how we often imagine pedal boards. You go in one end, you go through pedal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you go out of the other end. And obviously visualizing signal chains like that is really useful. That's how you should visualize signal chains. That's a good way to do it. But that doesn't mean that your pedals have to be put on the board in the same order. What I do when I'm putting pedals on a board, if you're using decent cable, and honestly, in my view, most cable is fairly decent now. These EBS flat cables, really good. EBS is an excellent company, makes wonderful effects, one of the best bass compressors out there. For example, find these very reliable, don't find any particular tone issues going on with this. I'm using a wireless anyway, so it begins with a buffer. So you're not getting the load of the capacitance of the cable fed into this. These are great. The main cables I'm going to use are actually Boss, which from the Boss Pedalboard kit, which are solderless and have a little screw on the side and screw in. These are a little bit tricky to get working at first. You've got to get into the groove of how to work them, and we'll look at them later when we're putting the wiring together. But I really like them, and they're really good bang for the buck. If you buy the big set, which is 24 plugs, and I don't know, 3 meters of cable, I think it comes to about 80 something pounds, or about 95 euros, something around there. And that means it's well under 10 euros, and even further under £10 per cable. Whereas if you look at some of the more expensive ones, unless you even if you buy really in bulk, you can end up at 14, 15, 16 euros or even more per cable if you buy fewer at a time. And on a big pedal board, with a few pedal boards for different applications, all of them fairly sizable, that's just really too big an investment. And I found that these, once you learned how to make them properly, and as long as you test each one, I have a pretty high hit rate of building them and not having a problem with them, and I've never ever had one fail since I've started using them. As long as once they're made right and tested, I've never had one fail at all, and they've had a bit of abuse as well, live and so on. So these are cables I'm using. So since modern cables are all tend to be fairly good, unless you're using really crap ones that come in blister packs, I'm not too worried about skipping pedals in the order, and worrying first about the ergonomics of how you're going to use the pedals, being able to get to each one quickly, and being able to turn the ones on and off together easily that you're going to need to switch between, and so on. And if you're not using a switcher, I have really thought about using a switcher for this. I was going to use a gig rig Quartermaster 6 for it, but I'm going to do it first without, and I might switch later, and there's a reason for me doing that, but I want to see how this one works out without it first. But the important thing is the ergonomics. Now, I already have this worked out in my head, so I'll stick the stuff on the board, and then I'll explain a little bit about the ergonomics and why I'm putting it like this. Firstly, any pedals where you're gonna where it's gonna be tight, stick a cable in while you're doing this, so that you don't get a surprise later. So this is about how that's gonna be. there. Let's get rid of that. Compressor, RezaFRATzitz, and then we're going to squeeze. Hopefully, we're going to squeeze this little JHS red remote for the Kilt in there. Now, I actually hope if we can, maybe we can't, to get that a bit further over so that the red remote sits next to there. There we go, that's how we're going to want it. What I would say at this point to pedal makers is, unless they're mini pedals where you almost have to put the jacks on the side, could you think about putting them on the top? It really fits together better on a pedal board. I'm not desperate to put loads of other pedals behind them, but I am desperate to put pedals next to it. And often you want to turn pedals on and off at the same time, so being able to get them closer together is a boon. And if you're heavy-footed with your big Doc Martens, and you want them all apart, you can still do that if they've got top-mounted jacks. But this is my plea: please use top-mounted jacks wherever you can. It would make me really happy. Right, what else have we got? We've got this, which is the switcher for the reverb and tremolo on my amp. It's normally a deluxe reverb or a Victory V40, depending on how I'm feeling, what kind of gig it is. Stick that there, I think. Right. We have a Super-Duper 2-in-1. One side of this stays on all the time because I like the sound of it. I use it as a preamp. All the gain stages go into this. And then this I use as a post boost after the distortion. So if I need a bump in volume, so I could use amps that are pretty clean. If I want a bump in volume for a solo, I have a button there that comes after the distortion pedal. Doesn't give you any more gain, just gives you a volume lift from the amp. That's going to go, I think, there. Now, then I have two other pedals that are going on. We're going to have the June 60 chorus there, and we're going to have the Caitlin Bread Pareidolia. Now, there are two reasons for putting these pedals on. One is that the Plethora doesn't yet have a harmonic tremolo. You'll know tremolo, I'm sure you'll know tremolo, which is just a volume modulation like you get on Fender Blackface amps and Voxes. The harmonic tremolo is a little bit different. It splits the signal by frequency, and then it modulates them at a different rate, which causes some phasing and gives a very distinctive warble, which I really enjoy. It's quite hard to do digitally, I understand, and the Plethora doesn't yet have one. I'm hoping that in future updates it will have one. They are adding stuff to it all the time, so I hope, here's my plea to TC Electronics, please try and do a harmonic tremolo along the lines of the Pareidolia, or the super harmonic tremolo I have on my other pedal board is absolutely outstanding as well. I like both of these. So that's going on for that. The June 60, I'm sure I can get a sound, I'm sure I can get the June 60 sound or something close to it out of the chorus that's in the Plethora, but I haven't found out, I haven't played with it enough to know how to do that yet. So for the time being, the June 60 is going to go on the board as well. But I'm hoping that in the future both of these will come off, and at least one of the slots will become a guest slot, because you know what we're like, pedal heads. We say, this is it, this is final, I fixed it, this is the board I'm going to use forever, and we never do. We always find new things come out, or we find great deals on eBay or Reverb, or a friend gives us stuff, and we want to use them. So hopefully when I've figured out how to get a sound pretty close to this out of the Plethora, which I'm sure I can, this will come off the board, and this will just be a guest slot with power and signal to it that I can drop other pedals in to try them. The nice thing is this is quite big and chunky, so I can fit pretty much any normal size pedal into that slot if I need it. So that's pretty temporary. If the pareidolia, if we get a harmonic tremolo that I like on the Plethora, then I'll take the pareidolia off the board altogether. But it's going to have to go for them to be as good as that, to be honest. I mean, a harmonic tremolo is quite a special effect, and that's quite a special version of it. So it's going to have to go some to get that. Now, the gain stages. Why are the pedals going to work like that? Well, first you need to know the signal chain. So the signal chain is going to go from the wireless to the wire, and then it's going to go into the Plethora, and then back out of the Plethora in its effects loop. In between, you can put the effects loop on the Plethora in between any of the 5 pedals on this, which is absolutely fantastic. So it's going to go into here so that if I use the whammy function, it's before all of the gain stages. The whammy works best on a clean signal and then dirtying up later rather than putting a dirty signal into the whammy. Also, I think they have a univibe being added in an update at some point, and I tend to like a univibe going before distortion as well. So we go into here, then we come back out, and then we put basically all of the other pedals on the board in the loop, and then we go back into the Plethora. And the order that they go into the loop is compressor, origin effects, Cali 76 compact, which is a really wonderful compressor. I really like this. It's on pretty much all the time except when I'm using really high gain sounds. Then from the compressor it goes to the EP booster. So this EP booster is to give more input level to the other distortion pedals. So if you're running a distortion pedal and you think, I need a bit more gain, I want a bit more sustain, I want a bit more fizz, you can hit that, I can hit that and give a gain boost. So this isn't necessarily something which is used all the time, this is something which is used when you need it. So it's stuck down here, right next to the wire pedal. It's the furthermost right, it's easy to remember, in the middle of a gig. One more distortion, hit that, there it is. Then it doesn't go into the SL drive here, it goes into the Kilt by JHS. This is a really cool pedal. I really like this gain pedal because it does a really nice sort of low medium gain, pretty, I'm going to use the word transparent, no big mid humps, no big EQ changes with it set flat, which was really nice. I used to use the Love Pedal Amp 11 for a similar kind of sound, and when I was rationalizing things I found this, and instead of using the Love Pedal, which is quite a chunky pedal and I'm only using it for one low gain sound, I have this, but by hitting the red remote you can bring in the second gain stage, which would normally be controlled by this switch, and at that point it turns into a really gnarly spitty fuzz. Now, I don't really get on with fuzz pedals, I've never really come to grips with big muffs and fuzz spaces and stuff, but I really like this one. This is the first one that's really made me want to play it. And it gets a really spitty gated fuzz sound, but if you put the compressor before it, it gets a nice smooth sound. So that's one of the reasons the compressor goes before it, because so when you play them clean, you can leave the compressor on, I have a medium gain sound, I have a really big fat fuzz sound there as well, without going near the compressor. Then it goes in the SL drive, which is a Marshall in a box pedal, a really good one. This replaced a box of rock, which is a ZVex box of rock, which is currently being repaired. It needed quite extensive repairs, but I'd had it for a long time. I had it for more than 10 years and used it in every single gig I played since then. I got this to replace it, I'm pretty happy with it, slightly higher gain, which is fun because my sort of one thing I could have done with a box of rock is a little bit more. Box of rock is, I think, according to ZVex, is a JTM 45 100 watt, that isn't 100 watt, is it? That's a 50 watt, that he based it wide open, which he based the sound on. This is a super lead, so it's a higher gain Marshall that it's based on, and that's really nice. I like that. That also works nicely with the Cali 76. I prefer the sound slightly. You get a little bit more pick attack with it if you turn the compressor off, but I can pretty much in a mix. I can pretty much live with the compressor being on for that as well. On the compressor, I use a slow fast setting, which means you don't lose too much of the initial transient of the note, and I don't have it set to squash it an awful lot. It's just to add a bit of sustain and bring out a bit of detail. And then last in the distortion chain, we have the Emma Electronics RezaFRATzitz, which is an absolutely amazing high gain pedal for playing stuff like Foo Fighters and stuff like that. I really love this pedal, but it really doesn't like the compressor. So the reason I've got it next to the compressor here is so that when I hit one, wearing shoes, especially big Doc Martens that I normally wear, I can hit the two buttons pretty easily. Then, as I say, we have the Super-Duper Tune one, which acts as a preamp for all of this. And it just adds a little bit of high-end sheen to it, which I really like. It's the same with the boost side of the box of rock. I'm not using it for a real boost. I'm using it because of the sound of the preamp, which I just really like. Then we go into the tremolo, into the chorus, and then back into the loop of the plethora, through the plethora, and out. That's single chain, and that's the ergonomics. So this is based on ergonomics rather than single chain, and you'll see later that you have to do some looping and looping back to do that. And people say, no, but you've got to have short cables. But as I was saying, you know, the cables are decent quality, and you're not adding, because they're cut to length, because we can cut them to length, we can have them exactly the right length. You're not wasting any cable length here, you know, so you don't have to have big coils of cable underneath it. You just have the bit of cable that you need. Right, so where we're up to is that we've planned the layout of the board. I've got the signal chain clear in my head. I've got the ergonomic layout, where I want the pedals to be. I found that they just about fit. It's a little bit of a squeeze, but I think we're pretty much there. So the next thing to do is before we do anything else, is to attach the power supply to the bottom of the board. The reason to do this first is that we're using screws and stuff. You don't want any of that to go through Velcro, and you don't want any aluminium shavings and so on to get stuck under Velcro, stuck under the edges of Velcro and so on. It's a right pain in the arse to deal with that, so it's much better to avoid it. So I've got the power I'm using is a Strymon Zuma that I've been using for a while on this board. I chose this because there are a few supplies I like. I really like the One Spot CS7, CS6, the flat one is underneath this board and is excellent. I have the CS7 along with the Zuma underneath my ambient board, and the larger one, I think it was at the 12, no 9, no 12, yes, CS12. Again, it's great. What I don't like about them is that you have some wasted outputs, because it has fixed 12 volt and 18 volt outputs, I think, on the One Spot. I really like it. It's an excellent power supply. And you have different ratings for each output. Now, I know that it's a switching power supply, and they've designed it really cleverly so that each output can take more load than it can provide more current than it says it can, as long as and it can spread it as needed across the outputs. I don't really want to have to think about it too much. What I like about the Zuma is it has 9 outputs. All of them are 500 milliamps, so they're going to power everything. You can pretty much chuck at them. Even big stuff like, say, a Line 6 HX Stomp, you can double up, and with 2 times 500, you're going to get enough current going through. And also you can change, on two of the outputs, you can change the voltage between 12, 9 and 18. And I have a few pedals like the Kali 76 and the EP booster and the SL drive, which I really like when they're running at 18 volts. They're designed to run at 18 volts for a different sound, for more headroom. And I really like this, really like it. I find the Kali 76 doesn't have a huge difference in sound. It has some difference in sound, maybe just a very slight brightness, which I like from it. The EB booster has a bit more headroom before it gets squishy. And yeah, I find the SL drive has just a little bit more attack, maybe a bit more articulacy. It might be imaginary, but they are, particularly the SL, the exotic stuff is designed to run at 9 or 18, depending on which one you prefer. They designed it with that in mind. So you have a couple of outputs which are switchable, set and forget. You just need to be really careful to then remember to only use them for those pedals, otherwise you can land yourself in a bit of trouble. So I have a Zuma, and I have the mounting kit for it. So we better get on with this. Now, I usually have an old breadboard to do this on. As you can see, I like to work on the floor. I find it's easy, you can spread out more. I'm very comfortable sitting cross-legged on the floor, have been. Normally I do this on a old wooden breadboard that I use. I don't have that hand, I don't know exactly where it is. So I'm going to use my old board for it. It's covered in Velcro, it won't get harmed. It's just something to sit it on, so that it's not directly on the wood floor here, if there are any slips or anything like that. Right. Now, I've done these before, so let's see if I can get it right. First snag. Still have the Pedalboard Tape, Velcro, well it's not Velcro, it's, they call it Pedalboard Tape, but I believe it's 3M dual lock. We'll talk a little bit about that later. This was Velcroed to the bottom of the board previously. Now it gets in the way of the brackets, so I'm going to go and take the Velcro off this. Now you can see with this stuff, maybe under the camera, it is unbelievably sticky. It has phenomenal adhesive. It's really great stuff. It's massively superior for pedalboard applications to the hook side of, that is the plasticky side of Velcro in my view. The adhesive's better, and also the grip of the Velcro itself. It's not Velcro, I keep calling it Velcro. That's a trade name, and specifically of the dual loop itself is much better. One thing is that if you put, really, there we go. One thing is that if you put two sides of this together, there's quite a good chance they're never coming apart again. And it could well be even stronger than the adhesive. When you pull things off, it'll pull the adhesive off. So what I do is I use the carpet side of Velcro on the board, which is the loop side. They're called hook and loop. It's the loop side, but it's a soft carpety bit. And then I put this on this pedalboard tape on the pedals. You can pick the pedal board up. At the end, I'll show you, you'll be able to pick the pedal board up by holding the pedals and lifting it up. It's that strong. But if you need to get it off, you can slip a screwdriver or something under it, give it a wiggle, and it'll peel off. I'll get the rest of this off. Right, that's bottom clear of the dual loop. Now, you don't have to use mounting brackets. As I said, the dual loop is incredibly strong. You can stick it to the bottom of the pedal board, stick it on this, and then put it on. But the benefit of using these these brackets is that would slip on like so. Get them lined up. Yeah. Then, see on the pedalboard cam, there. Oh, I've done it upside. I've done it upside down, haven't I? Have I done it upside down? No. And then they attach with a screw here, screws here, and screws here. And what this does, if you put it on right, is it gives you access to the power point through the holes on the back of the pedal board. Try doing that with Velcro, with dual loop. It's incredibly hard to do it. It also means that everything's really easily accessible there. You don't have to be reaching around. That's the lowest point under the board. Everything else will go up from there. So now the question is whether to put it in the middle or at one side. How do I use it now? I'm going to have the socket out for the switcher that goes to my amp to switch the tremolo and reverb on the left hand side. I'm going to have the out is going to be at the back on the left. We're upside down, so actually it is of course here. So yeah, let's leave a bit of room and put it a little bit offset. Oh, should we? Maybe we just put it in the middle. Should we just put it in the middle so we always know where it is? Yeah, let's do that. Let's just put it in the middle. Yeah. Am I going to measure it to the middle? Maybe I should. Yep. You can fit precisely 2 Plethora X5s and one of my fingers there on the width of this board. Great. Okay, so I'm just going to put a tiny little mark there with a screwdriver. Got a tiny little mark there, that's pretty much in the middle. So we'll go for that. Right, so the first thing to do is to get these in the right place. So I want that pushed hard up against the back there. Go in the middle. In the middle. Right, now for the front ones we can stick those in now. That's great. So I've got this pointy thing. Just going to make a little mark here and that'll be where we drill the holes. And there's one mark there. And that's not quite in the middle as you see, but very good. Yeah, that's going to be fine. Great, now it's a little bit harder for the back. So you want to put one of these in to make sure you're going to be able to fit it in according to where you put these top screws of the brackets. If we put this on here, I will plug that in through there, line those up. Now, also we don't want it to be too hard, so we're going to move that down just a touch. And now we can put our markers in with our pointy thing, which is here. Yeah, that bit. Now the nice thing is that Strymon, being clever people that they are, have left a bit of leeway here in the brackets, so that when you actually put the screws in, you can make final adjustments, which is really good. Again, that's good thinking. I like people who do good thinking like that and who mean the minor screw-ups by people like me who aren't that good at handy stuff with drills and that. won't result in things being ruined because you've got a bit of tolerance in it, and we can fix it if it goes wrong. So thank you to Strymon and all other companies that do things like that. Right, this bit's fun. We're going to do the drilling. So we're using a 3mm drill bit. Quite hard to find 3mm drill bits in my experience. And I spent a while hunting for this one. But 3mm is the ask, and therefore 3mm is what we get. Now, this isn't a particularly brilliant drill bit. If you've got a nice brand new one and a better quality one than this, you're going to have an easier time, and you can use one of your standard orange, black and Deckers, and that should be absolutely fine to get through aluminium. Once you break through with aluminium, it tends to be pretty easy to get through. It's strong, but it's not necessarily that hard. And of course, these are built for lightness. They're built with very thin aluminium to keep it light, because it's strong, but it's light. I actually find that this hammer action drill really helps, because it's not a great drill bit. If you have a good drill bit, a normal drill will work. So here we go. Well, hi. I told you it was a terrible drill bit that I've used for years and years and I needed a new one. Well, it has now snapped rather wonderfully. So I really, really do need a new one now. There we go. That's all that's left of the thread of it. So we're going to use a 2mm one, and we're going to hope that that works. I don't have another 3mm drill bit. I'm not going out in a lockdown to buy a 3mm drill bit. And we're done. We have 4 screw holes, not quite the right size, but you've got to work with what you've got. Now let's see if they line up, and they nearly line up. I think they line up enough. I think we'll be all right there. Excellent. So, 4 screws. One electric screwdriver, though I actually remember difficulty with this, because you've got to get that in there. We'll put the bottom ones in first, because it's easier to locate the top ones once these are in anyway. These are great, by the way. If you don't have one, you can get DIY stuff for own brands as well. I got this one on a special offer. So handy. Taking out pick guard screws when you've got 16 pick guard screws to take out. It's great. Oh, a bit far. Pull that one out a bit. There you go. So now we can locate the other ones. So this is where you really need to put this back in again, because if you settle this too high up, you're not going to be able to fit it in. So it's really, really important that you do this to avoid disappointment later. And as I say, you don't want it to be buttered up here. You want it to go in nice and easily. You're going to have to shove this in on busy stages, you know, with not much space. You want it to be as easy for yourself as possible when you get to that. Does this easily fit, or is it going to be a pain in the ass? Oh, I think it's going to be alright. There you go. Again, I've over tightened that, don't want to tighten it too much at this point. You can all laugh at how bad at these technical, you know, real man stuff. I was building Lego. Lego was so much easier than Meccano. What a faff with all the nuts and screws and bolts and stuff. You could just stick it together. Lego Technic, you just slot a cog on. Yeah, this is where it gets you. You get rubbish at this stuff. What do you mean it doesn't just all fit together? There's a big thing getting over the fear of drilling though. You know, I remember the first time I did a bit of drilling on a guitar, you know, to put a new bridge in or something, and it needed screw holes in a different place. It might be in a telly bridge or something. Oh, and also fitting Bigsby's, actually. Fitted loads of Bigsby's. So we really had to get over it for that. But the old adage of measure twice, cut once, measure twice, drill once is really there, you know. This is a bit easier because no one's going to see it. There we are. That's all nice. So I'll tighten all these up and we should be laughing. Okay, there we are. That's in the right, power input's in the right place. Perfectly solid, no rattling. That's not going to cause any bother again. Voila. Perfect. That's going to be covered up by pedals. The other nice thing about the bracket, if you Velcro it in, you can see on the pedal cam better. Let me try to show you that. If you Velcro it in, you're Velcroing it to this bit, to this. You have to Velcro it into here. It won't really bridge across, you have to put it in here. And you have to put enough Velcro in to keep the outputs high enough to access them. But the other thing is, once you've done that, it's quite hard to pass cables under here. And the thing I love about the Pedaltrain type pedal boards, there's lots of them of course, is that you can get it really nice and have all of the cables, you know, just disappearing straight under the, straight out of the pedal and straight under the pedal board, and all the wiring is underneath, and you can clip it all neatly together. So you can still use that, track if you need to. On the whole, it's better to avoid it, to be honest, because you're running it across transformers. But you don't tend to get much EMT emitted from the electromagnetic stuff emitted from this. It's very well shielded, and it doesn't seem to add any noise to anything. So there we are. Great. Right. So that's the power supply attached. Next is Velcro, because then we can start attaching pedals. Now for this one, for this board, I've got something a little bit special from Pedaltrain, I think. It's called hookandlooplove.com, and they've got pedalboard Velcro hook and loop in different colours. Now I've gone for this nice blue. Nice to have your board looking a little bit different. Black with black Velcro is quite boring. As it happens, they're not a particularly fun, colourful bunch of pedals. There's some nice ones, but they're not the most colourful bunch. There's a lot of silver in there and black. So this will brighten it up a bit. And also the two guitars that I either currently use or I'm planning to use in Zina are these two, which are both in a rather similar shade of blue. So there we go. We all pretend not to be vain about these things. Oh yeah, it doesn't really matter what it sounds like. It doesn't really matter what it all looks like. It's bullshit. We all care what it looks like. The most important thing about a guitar is what it looks like and whether it looks cool or not. And as I get older, in my 40s now, I find I don't shy away from doing stuff like that anymore. When I was more self-conscious when I was younger. So we're having a load of bright blue tape on the pedal board because I think it'll look fun. Now you probably can't quite see here, but the end of this doesn't seem to be quite square when it's being cut off at the factory, so we're going to cut that off square first. Try not to waste any more than we have to for it. Where are the scissors? Here we are. Scissors. That'll irritate me later if we have that and it's not quite square. Is that any better? Maybe not. Let's see. Yes, frankly it is. Now, I know that some people, when they put these boards together, do the Velcro like this and leave the edges uncovered. Never understand why you would do that. The edges are part of it. The edges are part of the surface area you've got to work with. You don't want to be working with less surface area than you, with less surface area you want to be working with more, so that you can fit everything in. You've got a bit more flexibility. For length, I have this little trick. You put your finger under it and then you cut along where your finger was. Try to be square, which I'm rubbish at. See if this one's worked. Perfect. Wow. What do you know? Okay, I'll do the rest. See you in a bit. Oh, you should probably watch me put one on, shouldn't you? Oh, I'm bad at stickers. I used to get shouted at by my art teacher at primary school. I was just so bad at cutting and sticking and everything, drawing. Well, that's pretty good. That's one done. We'll do the rest. See you in a bit. there we go. One very blue looking Pedaltrain board. Okay, I'm going to take a little break now and we'll start the pedals. Bye bye.